It's difficult not to compare the Xiaomi Mi Note 10 to the Huawei P30 Pro. They look similar, they have similar specs, and the camera systems are designed to do the same thing, have very good zoom range. They both have high megapixel main cameras. The Mi Note 10 with that 108 megapixel camera, you've got 40 megapixels on the P30 Pro. They both use pixel binning to take that down to 27 and 10 megapixel images. Apart from resolution, colors are going to be slightly different on the two. I noticed that the Mi Note 10 has slightly more punchy, saturated colors, whereas the P30 Pro tends to take more natural looking images. Another spec that they both share is a 32 megapixel front camera. It seems to my eye here that the P30 Pro is using HDR to slightly better effect than the Mi Note 10 if you look at the background. There is also a difference in the color science between the two. The Mi Note 10 seems to be brightening the image a little bit. Notice how when my face turns away, the image on the Mi Note 10 goes very dark. I think it's turning on and off beauty mode when it recognizes my face. Have a little listen to the audio on both of these phones as well, because that is a big part of audio quality and just quality of the phone in general. The P30 Pro and Huawei phones in general have pretty good audio, so check that out versus the Xiaomi phone. Both phones also have optical image stabilization on the main camera lens when shooting video. The Mi Note 10's colors seem a little bit washed out in this situation, but if I go from walking to jogging, you can see the difference in the stabilization between the two phones. It is dusk right now, so both of these phones are really struggling to produce an image without too much noise. There isn't that much light. If I switch to the 5x zoom on video, there is actually a big difference between the Mi Note 10 and the P30 Pro in terms of stabilization. This could be down to the hardware and also because of the processor too. In good lighting conditions, both phones are going to give you very good looking detailed images. Both phones are marketed more for their still images, high megapixel sensors and zoom range. So let's get on to test that. I'm about 10 meters away from this road sign over there, taking a normal photo in normal photo mode, not high megapixel mode. Again, the Mi Note 10 does try to brighten up the darker parts of the image. If I switch to high megapixel mode on both, firstly, you can see that HDR doesn't work on high megapixel mode, and so the bright areas of the image are overblown. So let's zoom in on that road sign over there. This is full megapixel readout, 108 versus 40 megapixels. The level of detail from that far away is very impressive on both of the phones. It's impossible for me to say that one phone takes a better photo than the other. They both look fantastic. Let's switch again to high megapixel mode on both of the phones, and let's zoom in on that building and have a look at that detail. Again, the differences are so small. It's very difficult to say that one is sharper than the other. There are some differences in the colors that the phones shoot. Check out the leaves of the tree in the foreground. This is just testing the HDR because the background buildings are very bright. The foreground is very dark. In photo, both do a good job, but how about video? There is not much light out there. The foreground is very dark and that background is brighter. Again, it's almost impossible to tell them apart. Both of the phones have a 20 megapixel ultra wide camera. So let's test that zoom going into the main camera. Again, the Mi Note 10 looks slightly more saturated. Xiaomi call the 2x zoom camera on the Mi Note 10 a portrait lens, but I think it does a really good job here of taking saturated images as well. The P30 Pro uses that periscope for 5x zoom, and the Mi Note 10 has a fixed focal length camera. 10x hybrid zoom on both of the phones does keep a lot of detail, and 20x zoom on both of the phones keeps so much detail. So even though the hardware on both the P30 Pro and the Mi Note 10 is slightly different and they have slightly different setups, you can see that the results you get from both of the phones are really similar. For me, the main differences don't come in the zoom range, but more just the color science. The colors are a little bit different, and whichever one you like is obviously going to be down to your personal choice. Both shoot 4K at 30 frames a second. There's no 60 frames a second video recording on either of the phones. However, I will give ease of use to the P30 Pro. When you're shooting video on the Huawei, you can really easily switch between ultra wide, main and zoom cameras, whereas on the Mi Note 10, you have to stop video recording and change like that. But how about that camera in low light situations? The sun has gone down and there's virtually no light now. Both do a good job here of keeping detail. And comparing this non-night mode shot into night mode, you can see both phones just brighten up the image a little bit, but I do give it slightly to the P30 Pro on this one. I don't think there's a clear winner in this test. In both photo and video, both of these phones produce incredibly similar results. If you want to see some more comparisons, go and check out my Twitter and my Instagram for more photos. That's it for now, but I'll see you in the next one.